Hello, my lovely soul, and welcome to Unstoppable Confidence. I am your host, Lauren Glick. I am here to bring you my energy, my motivational speaking, and me being a confidence mentor. My mission is to inspire women to own who they are, step into their higher selves fearlessly, and live a life with unstoppable joy. On this show, we are going to cover everything from aligning your life to your higher self, setting boundaries, self-growth, and living a purpose-driven life. Let's get you living a meaningful life you cannot wait to wake up to. Stop driving and start living with ease and abundance. Cheers to living a magical life. And I am so grateful to be on this journey with you. Now, let's head into today's episode. Hello, my lovely, and welcome to Unstoppable Confidence. Today, we have a guest who is so phenomenal, and we were very aligned with our autoimmune health issues. She got diagnosed in 2011, but now is completely medication-free, completely symptom-free. So if you are out there with an autoimmune issue, I would absolutely highly recommend you to listen to this episode. It is so inspiring to listen to other people's healing journeys. So on that, love, let's get into the episode, and I will see you on the other side. Well, thank you so much, first of all, Jessica, for being on Unstoppable Confidence podcast. As the listeners know, I absolutely love bringing inspiring stories about entrepreneurship, about health, about the journey of both of these things. And there was a huge connection within us, within our podcasting roles, and also our autoimmune health. Jessica is going to introduce herself, but as everyone knows, I have some autoimmune-ish that I'm doing really well with, but I do think it's because of my medication. But Jessica has a different story, so I'm excited to tune in to your story today.
Yeah.
I would love for you to introduce yourself, Jessica.
Thanks so much. It's so nice to connect with you, Lauren. And I think, the mission of Unstoppable Confidence, I think is really important too, especially for women and all the things that we have going on. It's like we need to have conversations like this to lift us up. So, I'm originally from Massachusetts. I live in Astoria, New York right now. And I wear many hats and have, of course, added many hats as the years have gone on. But primarily, I am an actor and host of the podcast Mamas in Training, which gives aspiring and expecting moms guidance and community from other moms who have been there. And so I'm building a community around that. I run off to do a commercial shoot or, any sort of acting gig that pops up, voiceover gig, whatever it is. And then, I have other passions and hobbies. I love fitness. And I've been with my husband now for 14 years this year, which is insane.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. So, I have a lot of different passions and interests. But as we're going to kind of talk about mostly today, it was back in 2011 that I first got diagnosed with my autoimmune disease. And I am happy to say that as of this past December 2021, I am now 100% medication free. And
wow.
I
So this is very
all on my own.
recently.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
Wow.
basically healed myself, knock on wood, continuously every day, but healed
Yeah.
myself from my autoimmune disease. So, and I did it in preparation for motherhood. So I'll get into that more
Wow.
later, but that was the main, inspiration behind it.
Wow. I can't wait to hear your story because we have a bit of correlation between our autoimmune issues. I don't
Yeah.
like calling them diseases, and I'm like, it's just an issue,
Challenges,
Autoimmune
obstacles.
challenge. There you go.
Yeah, yeah.
um, let's get into your because it's interesting. So, do you have children now, or is this something that you're like? How did you start a podcast about helping expected mothers? Um,
When I'm not yet a mom.
yeah, I didn't want to say
So
that,
many
Jessica, but how did that
Yeah.
happen?
No, it's unusual for sure, and I think that's what makes mamas in training unique. I think I
Mm,
come from a different perspective, and when I'm interviewing women and about their journey, or sometimes men occasionally, but
yeah.
primarily women and mothers. But when I'm interviewing, I'm coming at it from someone who has no idea, and
Mm,
so sometimes my questions be might even seem a little bit ignorant because it's like, I don't know. Whereas a
yeah.
lot of other podcasts about motherhood, the hosts are saying like, "Oh yeah, well with my first, I did this or that." So it it I think weaves in a nice interesting thread to
Yeah.
the conversation. But no, I'm not yet a mom, and it's always been something that's been on my heart. I
Mm,
mean, God, I don't know how long. I love kids, and it's always been something that I've planned on doing. But when I got my autoimmune disease diagnosis
yeah.
and was then put on medication, I've been on several different medications, but the
Mm,
final one that I ended up being on, my rheumatologist told me, well, unfortunately, there were many different things that
yeah.
came along with the medication, but one of them was you absolutely can't get pregnant. And if you do, you'd have
Oh,
to have an abortion, because the medication was just way too strong and would be
wow.
damaging to a fetus. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely not on that medication because my medication, they're like, whatever. Yeah, but I know what medication you're talking about because that was when they were like, yeah, we're not putting you on that.
Yeah. I mean, listen, like
Mm.
as a prerequisite to this whole conversation, it's like
Yeah.
there's completely a place for medication, and
Yeah.
everyone's different challenge is different,
Oh,
and needs a different set of tools to manage it. But um and that's what I needed at the time, and it worked
oh,
beautifully
100%.
for many years. Um but I was a little bit bummed because I mean at that
Mhm.
moment I was not ready for kids.
Mm.
Um but I knew that in the future, I wanted to have kids, and so I knew that the journey of getting off medication was coming at some point, I just didn't know when.
Yeah.
So, it was sort of in this time of waiting that I thought, "Well, what can I do to stay positive about this whole thing?" And simultaneously, all of my girlfriends were having kids at the same time, and I was just
Yeah.
surrounded by conversations of pregnancy and birth and motherhood. I also just happen to be a birth story junkie. I love to hear people's birth
Oh,
stories. The
yeah.
nitty-gritty are the better. Um, and so I thought, well, maybe if I start interviewing moms about what they wish they had known, I
Yeah.
can learn myself, during this period of waiting. And so that's how Mamas in Training was
Wow.
born. And I am a mama in training. And I think that there's some value, if someone does desire to become a mom at some point in
Mhm.
their future. I think there's huge value in letting some information seep into your brain as a mama in training before you get there,
Mm.
without the hormones and everything like that yet. So,
Yeah. That's so interesting. It's a huge twist to having a podcast on mamas in training and expected mothers. And I could understand how that's a really fun podcast to listen to, especially when you your listeners are those that want to have children and they probably have the same questions as you do.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's nice because, we've built a community on Facebook, Mamas in
Mhm.
Training Facebook group. And it's nice to have a place because I know myself and other women have told me this, it's hard to really know where you fit in.
Yeah.
especially if for some reason, like a medication or a fertility challenge, if you are in this period of waiting. And so to know
Mhm.
that there's a place for you where you can learn and get support is nice to have and unusual.
Interesting. A little short story about me, Jessica. I am 37, and a couple years ago, I did get my eggs frozen because I'm like, I
Oh,
don't
wow.
want that anxiety looming over my head.
Yeah.
And now I'm part of science, so that makes me really happy too.
It's
I don't know.
amazing. Such
And
an amazing experience.
it is. And I mean, it wasn't amazing at the time because I think I had a pretty bad reaction to the injections. I documented it and put
Mm.
it on TikTok, and I was watching it last night, and I was like, wow, after the first shot, my whole body was extremely itchy. And and a couple
Wow.
weeks later, and then I got my eggs. I mean, I had a lot of eggs, so that was good. It was a good experience, but after that, it was a couple weeks later to about a month, was when I had my second flare up, and
Mm.
assuming that it was because of all the increase of hormones in my body.
Mm.
But I mean, that being said, I did freeze my eggs because who knows? I mean,
Yeah.
I could have a surrogate. If I don't use them, then I could give them to somebody
Mhm.
else. Because a lot of women, I mean, that's an issue with,
Yeah.
not being able to even freeze eggs because their body can't produce them for some reasons. As you were saying, everyone's journey is different. Um,
Mhm.
so I did that, and kind of leading that into autoimmune, right? I would absolutely love to hear your story, in 2007 of wait, 2011.
Yeah.
Um, like how you got your diagnosis, what was that process for you?
Yeah. So, I was actually starting in 2011, I had
Mhm.
just joined, a national tour as an actor. So right now I focus more on TV, film, and commercial, but beforehand I was more of a theater actor. And
Yeah,
so I was traveling the country in Canada and the national tour of Beauty and the Beast and was, basically about to live my dreams, and I was living my dreams.
yeah.
Um, and that's when I started first noticing spots of psoriasis on my skin, and I actually
Mm.
thought it was a bed bug at first, which now I wish it was. But, it just started off as small spots, and then
Mhm.
I went away on tour, and ironically, I'm like, so here I am living my dream, getting paid to perform, traveling the
Mhm.
country with friends, saving a ton of money, seeing all these new places. But at the same time, my skin was absolutely exploding. And I had one of the most severe cases of psoriasis. I was
Wow.
completely covered, basically, besides my face from head to toe, from my scalp down to my toes.
Wow.
Um, yeah, it was really bad, and luckily I had, costumes in the show,
Yeah.
but I had to, at some point, start to put makeup on it to, cover up, so you couldn't
Yeah.
see it as bad from the audience. And I got put on a medication for that,
Mm.
an injectable, medication for that, and it slowly started to work.
Mhm.
Um, but I was at such an intense, like, I was so desperate for something to work
Mhm.
that I was trying everything. So I went on this crazy apple diet and all of these things, and I was researching, what can cause this stuff and learned a
Yeah.
lot about gut health. And I ended up cutting out gluten because I had heard
Mm.
that that would be, a really beneficial thing. And then it was about 2012. I
Mhm.
was performing in Los Angeles, and my boyfriend at the time, now husband, was visiting me, and I started to develop some pain in my ankles, and I had just
Mm.
bought a new pair of sandals and thought it was from the sandals and a lot of walking around LA. And then it didn't go away, and then it ended up going away, but coming back on the weekend. And for some reason, it continued to come back every Saturday, which was very strange, and it would last like Saturday to Wednesday, and then I'd feel better Thursday, Friday, and then it would come back again. Um, and the pain ended up getting so bad that at one point my husband had to carry me to the bathroom because I physically couldn't walk. I couldn't put any sort of weight on my feet and my ankles. Um, and I had to end up calling out of some shows because I couldn't perform, I couldn't dance, I couldn't walk. And it was pretty horrifying, and I ended up getting taken off of that initial medication and put on another medication, which helped a little bit, but not 100%. And it was a year after that that I was finished up with tour, moved back home to New York, and I had to buy a cane because I literally couldn't walk and was trying
Wow.
to manage was trying to manage walking. So yeah, it was pretty horrifying. I was only like, I don't know, 26 at the time or something like that.
Yeah.
Um, and, not knowing if my dreams as a performer were ever going to come to fruition because I didn't know if I could ever walk again. And I had these flare ups that really just left me totally debilitated. And then I ended up going onto this medication that I thought, unfortunately, I couldn't have kids on it, but
Mhm.
I hoped it would help. And luckily it did. And it got me out of the desperation moment,
Yeah.
and definitely onto the road of healing.
That's interesting, Jessica. I don't want to say it's similar to mine because we all have different journeys,
Mm,
but I I had my health journey and still on my health journey of psoriatic arthritis. Um and it seems pretty similar. I was on a pretty crazy journey of as I was retiring from my fire department, because I started with psoriasis as well. I have ulcerative colitis, so I had symptoms of that nature. And
mm,
when I left my fire department, which I didn't know if I was leaving, I didn't know what the heck was going on. I had an insane amount of stress of like I'm losing my identity. I can't leave this department. There was so many unknowns, and being a firefighter, that's the last thing you want to do is leave a fire department. Um
yeah.
so it was insane. I didn't think I was leaving. I was, suffering from PTSD. There was an insane anxiety, insane depression. Like there was so much going on. I worked for a city that was in the top 5 ratings of homicides per capita in the United States. So that's why I had so many mental health issues at that time.
Mm,
And then you take the portion of leaving and losing your identity. You're like, it was like a complete shit show.
yeah.
So when that happened, I went on a health journey of starting to become a personal trainer and working at really high end gyms and working with very elite clients. And then I was coaching group classes, and it wasn't pushing myself. I absolutely loved that physical element to things, especially working in a fire department where we were going into burning buildings at least on a weekly basis. So I loved physical work. Like it was my
Yeah.
jam. And to push myself within the fitness world, I absolutely loved it. But
Yeah.
one day with those preconceived, psoriasis and ulcerative colitis symptoms, it was a couple years, and I started to get really bad ulcerative colitis without going into details,
Mm,
symptoms. And when that happened, it was a couple months down the line when I started getting my psoriatic arthritis symptoms. And I kind of pushed it off as well. Yours started in your ankles, but mine started in my thoracic spine.
mm.
And I didn't walk with a cane, but holy moly, I don't know if you had the same symptoms, Jessica, of I mean, I don't want to say I was bedridden, and it comes on very slowly. It's not like one
Yes.
moment I can't just get out of bed, but it was, I don't know, 6 months down the line of I can't even roll over in bed because of the
Yeah.
crippling pain in my thoracic spine.
Ugh,
I moved home with my parents because I couldn't even get out of bed without help.
same. Yeah.
It was insane. So it's kind of crazy to meet somebody that had a similar journey with psoriatic arthritis at such a young age.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I mean, my whole life with my skin, I never had the bad acne or anything like that. I mean,
Yeah,
my skin was always great.
me too.
I've always been a dancer, physically
Yep.
active, so, um, all of a sudden not being able to move,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really scary.
It's extremely scary, especially when you're so physically active, and I don't wanna say I relied on it, but I absolutely loved it
Yeah.
for because I was a huge yogi as well, and I went to hot yoga practice, especially for the
Mhm.
meditation aspect, and I couldn't even do that. So, like, imagine somebody that's super physically active and they do that to, like, kinda calm the mind down. I really had to
Yeah,
understand, I went into a lot of personal development so I could
yeah,
have that understanding of the human psyche. I
totally.
laugh at it because it was like, things, I don't wanna say everything happens for a reason, but it helped me understand myself a lot better as well.
Completely.
So, I'm
Yeah.
gonna ask you, Jessica, because there's so many similarities, and I really want to hear your journey of how were you able to cope with your diagnosis and having to walk around, and that's the thing is, like, you think about it in the past, right? And you're like, "Oh, I walked around with a cane. That was really shitty," right? Like, I think
Yeah.
about my past of, like, "Oh, I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't roll over in bed. I had to have help to get out of bed without, like, crippling pain," and, like, just it took me 3 hours to get out of bed. Like, I would start with my ankles.
Mm.
I would slowly get mobility in my ankles, and then I would move up to my knees, and it was the most pain in my hips. Like, I just couldn't. It was ugh.
Mm.
Now that I'm actually thinking about it, it's not like, "Oh, whatever, it
Yes.
was so much pain." But it's like, how were you able to move forward within your health journey? Like, how did that begin for you? I mean, because I know that process of, like, the pain. Um, what was that process for you?
Yeah, I mean, once I got on the medication, I mean, like I said, coming to New York, buying a cane, I remember specifically walking into the CVS and realizing I have to do this. There's no way that I can walk to the subway or get around. And I just remember sobbing in the middle of the CVS.
Yep.
And I couldn't live in New York at the moment. So just like you, I did the same thing. I moved home for about 6 months. And at the time, I dove fully into like the business of acting because I was like, well,
Mm.
signed up for a course. I just had to keep myself busy and my mind busy. So while I was living at home, I was trying to do that stuff online and make connections and network. But then I slowly got back. I actually ended up auditioning for a theater production, a Christmas show, back toward home. It was a
Mhm.
regional production, but it was, I could travel in a car. And so I didn't have to move to New York. It wasn't as big of a commitment. And it was a nice way for me to ease back into my career.
Yeah.
And then slowly but surely things, just started to get better while I was on this medication. And I was good. I mean, pretty much the whole time from 2013 when I first started that medication till 2019. I mean, I was really good and feeling great, knock on wood.
That's
But
interesting. So you definitely did rely on the medication at first.
100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That's where I'm at,
100%.
Jessica. That's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, and like I said, you need to get out of, the pit of despair,
Yeah.
truly. And
100%, because,
so
like, when you
there's a
can't move, and there's a
no.
quote, and I always forget who has this quote, but "A man with his health has but a million problems. A
Mm.
man without his health has but one. Every time I say that quote, I get the chills because people that don't have health issues don't understand that quote. But when
Yes,
you can't even walk, you're like, okay, that's it. This is my
exactly.
100% focus. Nothing else matters.
Exactly. And you look around at everybody else and you're like, "I wish I could
I
be
know.
you." You have no idea what it's like.
I
But
totally
yeah,
get
it's
it.
tough. It's tough.
Yeah.
And you have to get, a lot of people ask me like, "Well, how did you heal your autoimmune disease?" And I
Yeah.
or they say like, "I
How
could
did you
never
get
do
off?
that."
How did you get off medication? Because I just like, on a personal note, I just got literally 9:30. I just got off the phone with my rheumatologist because I had to get a biopsy because I have increased levels of my liver. And just making that's just meaning that I went on this heavy medication, which we think is the increase
Mhm.
of my liver count. And he's like, well, we're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to keep doing blood work. No extreme, crazy health scare right now. We could be like this for a couple months to a year,
Yeah.
but it is a possibility that we're gonna have to take you off your medication. So, Jessica, I really do feel like it's a divine intervention right now of Jessica
I
being like, "It
agree.
is possible." And it's so interesting because we had to delay this, podcast episode.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited to dive into this,
Isn't it
Jessica, but
isn't
it's
it
possible.
interesting how
Yeah.
how the world works,
Yeah.
the universe works?
Yeah.
I think first and foremost, the way that you do anything that's hard
Yep.
is you have to have a why. And I know that
Mm.
people have probably heard this a lot and, are maybe even rolling their eyes about it, but it's true. And if you have anything that you're going through and you know that you need to make a massive change, you cannot do that if it's just for a reason of, I want to feel better or I want to look better or that's
Yeah.
not deep enough. And so for me, my why was to have a child.
Yeah.
And I would literally sit there and picture myself holding an infant, and I would just sob because if I wasn't able to have that opportunity, and, of course, like, I could adopt and there's many other ways to make it happen, but just the opportunity of being able to bear a child and have it be my own in that sense, come from my body, it was important to me, at least to
Yeah.
try. And my why became so vivid and so tactile. Like I could
Mm.
feel it in every ounce of my body that this is what I wanted and this is what I desired. Then the changes that I knew were coming for my diet and for my health were purposeful.
Yeah.
And it's so much easier when you have a clear cut why. Like oftentimes, if say it's for an older person, maybe they're in their 60s and they need to make a change because they have some sort of health challenge coming up. It's hard to undo the habits that we've made for 30, 40, 50, 60 years of our life. But maybe for somebody like that, it's like, you want the opportunity to hold your future grandchildren or to run around with your future grandchildren. So
Yeah.
therefore that's going to be your why, or maybe the why for you if you're somebody else like me but doesn't necessarily want kids, like maybe it's, to run a marathon. Maybe it's to
Yeah.
find a partner. Like who know depending on whatever your personal situation is, there has to be a why behind it all. And so first I found my why. Then I did a lot of research in different plans because for me, I need to follow a plan. I need to be
Yeah.
told what to do and how to do it. And so for me, I followed the Dr. Amy Myers autoimmune solution diet.
Okay.
Um, yep, she's great. And once again, like everybody has their own thing. Like there might be another plan that someone finds that works perfectly for them.
Yeah, how do you spell her
Um,
last name?
Amy Myers, Myers, Dr. Amy Myers.
Okay.
And it's the autoimmune solution. She has the book, and then she also has the autoimmune solution cookbook. And so she laid it all out for you. And essentially, in a nutshell, it's an elimination diet in the beginning.
Okay.
And so you have a really, really challenging 30 days, and you are very limited in what you eat for 30 days to really clear your body and get to a base level.
Mm.
And then after those 30 days, you slowly add in different things. And so, say you're going to add in for the first time nightshades, tomatoes, eggplants,
Yeah.
peppers. You'll add those in for 3 days. You'll notate any sort of changes that you see or feel within your body, and then
Mhm.
you stop it. And then you wait the next week and you add in legumes. Same thing, and you move all the way through. So this process takes a long time.
Yeah.
I would say it took me like a whole year essentially. And then after
Wow.
you get through, because also like things come up, and maybe if I did have a reaction, I wanted to wait an additional week to make sure that my baseline was normal again. But uh, you do see these changes or things happening, and you're like, "Holy crap! That I have a headache
Really?
now." Like why do I have a headache? And then the summary of it is at the end of it, anything that didn't negatively affect you, you add
Mhm.
back in. And so then at the end, you're not always living in this hard 30-day, baseline place.
Yeah.
You maybe legumes don't bother you, maybe nightshades don't bother you, and you add back these things and, kind of come up with your typical way of eating, I like to call it, instead of diet, because it's really a lifestyle and it's a way of eating.
Yeah.
But primarily, you never bring back in gluten or dairy. Um, and so as of now, I don't eat gluten, I don't eat dairy. I don't usually eat white sugar. I only eat like maple syrup, honey, or coconut sugar. Um, I rarely have any oils other than like avocado oil or olive oil. No canola oil, no vegetable oil. I limit my caffeine a little bit, so there are certain things. And let me tell you, if I want to go ahead and cheat and have something here and there, which I do, I'm not perfect. Um, but boy, do I notice a difference immediately in my
Wow.
entire body. Um, and yeah, so I started this in 2019, and I really got myself to a nice solid baseline. And then simultaneously, once I was in a good, place with my way of eating, my mindset was let me heal the inside of my body so that
Mhm.
hopefully as I go off the medication, my body is as strong as it possibly can be so that it doesn't have reactions in the future. And so I slowly started weaning myself off of my medication, and it took me 2 years. Um, but yeah, I took my last pill away in December, and knock on wood, I haven't had any pain. My psoriasis is still around, but it's very minimal, just like little spots, ankles, elbows here and there, but that's totally manageable. And I
Wow.
healed myself.
I absolutely love that story, Jessica. And I've heard of the elimination diet. My sister has autoimmune ish as well. And she had to go on that for a while to kind of, her story is a lot more dramatic than mine, even though
Mm.
we're totally different in our, well, mine was dramatic too. Yours is dramatic too. Anything is, and it's traumatic
It's
as well.
yeah, yeah, everybody's is.
So that's interesting because I was going to ask, well, did you get rid of the gluten? Well, obviously you did, especially with the elimination diet. Um, it's just everybody is different, and I
Mhm.
absolutely love to hear. And it is a very slow, gradual change. I mean, it's a slow, gradual change for a flare up within a body. So I wouldn't expect anything crazy and overnight. So I am
Yeah,
going to 100% check out that book because it's scary to be like, because I went in, as I told you at the beginning of this episode, I didn't, or was it on this episode or not? It was probably before we were talking. When I sat down for my first infusion of my medication, I was like, there's no way in hell this is going to work. It's just not.
yeah,
And I got up out of that chair 3 hours later and I was like, where is that pain in my back again? So
yeah,
now, since I got up after that chair, it totally changed my mindset of, oh my God, this medication does work. And now I do feel a little bit of it being a crutch. So to get back to my health journey and to start an elimination diet, especially if I am going to have to just, and there's no weaning off my medication, unfortunately.
Mm,
There's like you're either on it or you're not.
mm.
So that's something that I will be looking into for sure.
Well, the thing is too, is like, kind of going hand in hand with your why,
Yeah.
if if you're trying something out, like you need something to get you out of that pit of despair,
Hmm.
but then you can find ways to, you know, it, it's all about the plan. If you have
Yep.
something to follow and you know that the root of it all is going to be that why, that healing end,
Hmm.
because medication is 100% necessary most of the time, but it's just curing the symptom. It's
Yep.
not curing
The
the
problem.
autoimmune disease
Yeah.
challenge that your body is fighting. And so your body's going to continue to fight it. We're just going to cover it up with the medication to make our mind think that we're doing okay.
Yep.
And, you hear all of these medications, all of their crazy side effects that come in. It's not a, fluke that those come in,
Mhm.
but they're not healing your body. So, I mean, until they come up with a medication that they say, take this and it will heal your autoimmune disease from the inside out
Yeah.
to the point that one day you won't have to take it anymore. Well, then fabulous. Like, I'm all in.
Me too.
But until that point, yeah, it's like until that point, you have to just weigh your options. And
Yeah.
it's not for everybody. And it doesn't
Yeah.
have to be for everybody.
Mm-mm.
You might not have a goal or a desire to ever need to go off medication, and then wonderful, like easy. But
Yeah.
if you have something like I had where I was like, no, I, I don't want to go on to another medication that they say could be safe for pregnancy because I just don't
Yeah.
believe it. And that was me. That was my experience. But
Yeah.
ultimately, I think the main gist of it is if you have your why cleared out and you've truly meditated on what it will feel like to either be in that place or to not be in that place,
Yeah.
to like really feel what it's going to feel if you have or don't have that thing. And then you have
Yeah.
a plan to follow. It's not easy, but it will make it easier.
Yeah. I loved that, Jessica, and it's so important to always understand your reason why, and not just on a health journey, but also in life and having plans,
Yeah.
right? Knowing your destination rather than just like loftily just going out into, um, as I like to say, I worked for Tony Robbins, and one of his main,
Mm,
I don't want to
love
say
him.
quotes, but his things of what he likes to tell people of like, you're not going to go on vacation and just get in your car, pack your bags, and start driving. Like, you need to know where you are going, because going
Yeah.
100 miles down the road into La La Land is not going to help you. And
Mhm.
you're going to be going somewhere fast, but you don't know where you're going. Um, so you always
Mhm.
need to have that destination in mind. And I truly do believe that we were meant to be on this podcast episode today after I talked to my rheumatologist. Like, you couldn't have planned that
Yeah.
out. You
You're
literally couldn't
crazy.
have. And yeah, the medication has 100% helped me. And if you are out there listening with an autoimmune issue as well, for sure reach out to Jessica, because my Lord, this topic today has been so helpful of understanding your reason why. And it goes back to entrepreneurship as well. You're always
That's
understanding your
exactly Yeah, you
right.
literally took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was just gonna say. Because too, it's like, starting the podcast, for example, the
Yeah.
podcast came out of this,
Mhm.
but anybody who has an entrepreneurial type of adventure that they're going on, and how what I've experienced is
Yeah.
you don't keep going
Mm-mm.
unless there's a reason
Your
behind
why.
why you're still going,
Yeah.
and for me it's obviously to help other women as well, but it's also selfishly like for me to just keep learning, and there's
Uh-huh.
so many things to learn about motherhood. And so, I'm never going to stop. it's easier to keep going, and I'm never
Yeah.
gonna stop not learning because I have that why. So yeah, and if there's
Yeah.
anybody that wants more support too, especially if you're an aspiring or expecting mom, I'd love to see you over in our Facebook community, Mamas in Training too, and connect there, because this journey, whether you're on an autoimmune disease
Yeah.
challenge, you're an entrepreneur, or you're an aspiring hopeful mama future in the future, it's not easy, and community is
Mm.
huge. So
It really is, Jessica, and yes, 100% reach out to Jessica. And then I wanna ask you another question. I
yeah.
like how we're like, here's your tag, here's your tags, but then we're gonna go back into the conversation. But I do have one more question for you.
That's okay.
So what is your Instagram handle that people can reach you
Yeah.
at?
Yeah, you can find me at Mamas, it's MAMAS, so Mamas in Training Pod, POD.
Okay. And then what is your Facebook group again?
It's same thing,
Okay.
MAMAS, so Mamas in Training, and you can just search that within Facebook, or you can send me a direct message and I'll send you a link. There's many ways that you can find me. It's also the website Mamas in Training, and you can find links there to everything too.
And if I was to ask you, this is going back to the questions, because I see that you're really big into mindset and do you read personal development books?
Do I read personal development books? I just got one last weekend. Are you
Okay.
kidding?
That's funny because it's like I usually say nonfiction and then people give me like a fiction book and I'm like, okay, we'll just say personal development now. I am always
100%.
reading nonfiction, either if it's to help me learning about investing, real estate, all the great things, personal development. What is your favorite personal development book?
Oh my gosh. Well, I just bought a new one, that
Yeah.
I'm curious. It was recommended to me by a podcast coach that I have. It's called the 12-week year. So that's one
Wow.
to maybe check in. I haven't
Okay.
I haven't read that yet. But my absolute favorite that I just read, is called The Slight Edge.
Oh,
Um,
I've read that was actually the
ah,
first personal development book I have ever read.
I read it, um, did I read it like online or something like that? I might have read it on like online.
Mhm.
Um, but then I ended up buying it because I was like, I need it for myself. I need to like tactile. It's one that you can go
Mhm.
back in over and over and over. It's crazy. So, and it works for any type of journey that you're on. It's not even an
Mm.
entrepreneurial thing. I mean, it can be
Yep,
anything that you're working on, healing autoimmune disease, whatever.
yep.
It's just that those slight, small decisions that you make every day. So
Oh my
impactful.
god, you just brought me a blast from the past. I was a firefighter at the time. I actually had partnered with an MLM. This was like what? I don't even know how long ago. About 10 years ago. Because I just wanted to, and that MLM was actually huge into mindset and personal development like most MLMs are. Um and that the president, I think he was, the CEO of the company, was the author of that book.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that
I love it.
MLM is around anymore, so pointless to say
Mhm.
the name of it, but, yeah, that was my first personal development book, and I
Mm.
am going to have to go back and read that because
Great
God, that was me,
reminder.
like, stumbling over my words, but when you start with personal development, it's like a foreign language of like, what is this even talking about? So I'm gonna have to go back and read it and I'll probably be like, interesting. To
Yeah, a new
see my growth.
perspective at this
Yeah,
point. Yeah.
100%. Do you listen to what well, of course you listen to podcasts if you have a podcast and you listen to mine. What is
Mhm.
one of your favorite podcasts that you listen to pretty regularly?
Well, my favorite, I would have to say, because I'm always thinking about podcasting too,
Yeah.
is one called Grow the Show. And
Hmm.
it's from the, I signed up for a podcast accelerator program
Yeah.
with the creator of Grow the Show. His name's Kevin Schmidlin, and he's absolutely fantastic. If anybody needs to get connected with him, let me know, because he's just changed my life as a podcaster.
Wow.
And he puts out this podcast to kind of support the accelerator program and the course,
Mhm.
and just gives you tips on how to grow. But I mean, even if you're not a podcaster, if you're just an
Mhm.
entrepreneur as well, it can be helpful to learn how to grow an audience and different things like that. But yeah, I I love it.
That would be an interesting connection, Jessica, for sure. I'll
Yeah.
DM you. Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And on that, I do have one more question. I love asking 3 questions to all of my guests on my show. Is the first one
Mhm.
of the book, the second one of the podcast. And if you're not a quote junkie like I am, totally, you can say you don't have a favorite quote, but are you one
Lauren, we
to,
were divinely put together for a reason. Of
oh
course
my
I
God,
love
that's
quotes.
I love it. What is your favorite quote? So funny. I have literally a box of quotes because I have
Oh,
these papers. Dude, don't look at my notes, but these papers with quotes at the bottom of them. So
oh, I
every
love them.
day, my favorite quote every day. This is how fat my notepad is. So every day I get to see a
Amazing.
quote.
I love it. Yeah, no, I think my favorite is, Wayne Dyer, "As you think, so shall you be."
Oh my God, I
Um,
love it.
and that goes
Okay.
back to, you mentioned Tony Robbins, who's also
Hmm.
like I'm a massive fan of Tony Robbins. He has some
Yep.
really good books too.
Yeah.
Um, but he also kinda explains that to be, for example, if you call yourself a recovering alcoholic, you will always be a recovering alcoholic. And so it's claiming that. And so that's one thing that I had to do throughout my healing journey is proclaim to the world, like, as I think, so shall I be. So, like, I
Yeah.
am healed, I am healthy, I will be a mother one day, and I will be able to bear children and be medication free. And so
Yeah.
it's all about mindset.
100%. 2 things on that, because I'm huge into mindset and especially in business, like, I just, partnered with, a franchise, and I went way out of my comfort zone. I didn't buy 1,
I
but I
love it.
bought 3 locations, and I
Oh
was
my
like,
gosh.
"Holy moly, what in the hell did I just get myself into?" But, cutting that out and moving forward and being like, I have the most insane like, the people in my franchise, like the president, the HR department, the sales department, they're so overqualified in what they do. They had
Mhm.
so much. They were like, Lauren, you could grow a community like no other. Like, we're
Mm.
not worried about the business aspect. So when I partnered with them, they have so many tools for me. And it's like, oh,
So
I
great.
every day I'm like, oh my God, what do I do? What do I do? I call and they're like, oh, Lauren, this is it. This is what you do. And
We
I'm like,
gotcha.
oh, I'm like, oh. So when I change my mindset on things that I don't know how to do into, oh, I just get to learn about this and I have the most
Yep.
insane mentorship ever. Like I
Yep.
turn it into a learning game and just making sure that my mindset is on track and to go into
Absolutely.
and I'm also an artist, right? I studied fine art in college. And I'm looking over here because it's one of my paintings of I haven't painted in a couple years because I had the mindset that I forgot I knew how to paint. I don't
Mm.
know why in the hell, like in business, I could do all these crazy things. I could go running into burning buildings. But I don't know why that mindset changed around my art of I don't know how to paint. And the past month or 2, I had one of my neighbors, she has an art studio at my house, and I told her, I was like, "Cheryl, I don't feel comfortable coming over to your house because I don't think I remember how to paint." She was like, "You're
Mm.
ridiculous. Just pick up your paintbrush." It took
Just
me
do
2
it.
months to go over to her house, and I am so
Mm.
thankful for her because I'm like, I hate talking bad about myself, but I'm like, I am such an idiot for thinking I forgot how to paint.
Yep.
Because I'm looking
It's
at
all
this
about shifting
painting.
that mindset.
I know I'm looking at this painting. I'm like, holy shit! Like I am talented. Like, excuse me,
Yeah.
but my God,
Proclaim
why
it.
did I? And it just mindset is everything. And
Yeah.
my best friend, I told her this. The reason why I just told you that story, she said the exact same thing of like, Lauren, what you think what you is what you become, just like the
Mhm.
quote that you just said. And she sent me over an Audible, and I'm like, of course, like she is not an entrepreneur. She's not into mindset. She's just getting into personal development. She sent me over an Audible of a book called Your Erroneous Zone.
Ooh, I'll have
Yes.
to check
And
that out.
she's like, Lauren, like I'm done telling myself I'm not good at this. I'm not good at math. Cause if I tell myself I'm not good at it, I'm not good at it. But if I lean into it and I learn, I'm like, Jessica, like, I'm the entrepreneur that deals with mindset all the time. I didn't say this to her, but I'm like, touche, you know, like I am always learning. And that's the thing, especially with self-development, we always get to keep learning and keep going over those same things to keep it fresh in our minds. And I'm so huge on it. And I'm so thankful for my best friend Jessica yesterday that was like, go read this book. And I was like, yeah, I do that with my business. I didn't say that, but I was like, I do this with my business. Why in the hell did I not think about me and my mindset with my artwork? I'm just like, touche. Like
sometimes
the universe,
we just need to wake up. That's all.
I had that huge wake up call. So thank you for that quote, Jessica. Yes, I do believe that the universe was meant to put us together. This is why I love podcasting, because I get to meet the most incredible men and women and have a connection. And I think, and this is why I don't like having preset questions either, because you never know where the conversation is going to go. And I really love listening to stories and asking questions from those stories, because my questions come directly from my experiences as well.
Yeah.
So I know I just did a lot of talking there, Jessica. Do you have any last insights for the podcast for this episode?
It's just, it was wonderful. It was wonderful to connect. And I like you said, I think there's a reason that we did. And anybody who might be listening, you know, whether or not you connect to autoimmune disease or motherhood or anything like that, it's all tied in. And I would love to just continue to help support anybody. If you're an aspiring or expecting mama and you'd like to take a listen to the podcast, or join us over in the Facebook group, I'd love to have you. And if not, if you just want to say hello over on Instagram at Mamas in Training Pod, I'd love to see you there too.
And what was the name of your podcast again? Mamas,
MAMAS, in Training.
It's like everything else. My God, you're so good at marketing.
Yep. That's it.
I was expecting a different name, you know? I don't know
Mamas
why.
in Training everywhere.
Yes. I absolutely loved our conversation, Jessica, and the connection and just the divine intervention of the universe yet again. Okay. I always love things that happen like this because I love to say thank you to the universe and to the conversation and to the connection, because then more things like this happen. And
absolutely.
I'm never shocked anymore about situations like this, because I'm like, I see you. So
got it.
I got it. So thank you so much for all of your insight, Jessica.
You're so welcome.
And especially on a personal level as well. If I have gotten so much from this, I know the listeners have as well. So thank you for your time. And welcome. I am super excited to keep this relationship going with you as well. So
absolutely. Any way that I can help support you on your journey, just reach out.
You're awesome, Jessica. And thank you again for the listeners today. If you have any questions for Jessica, reach out to her on Instagram. She has her Facebook group and her podcast. Those links will be in the show notes. And on that, lovelies, we will chat on the next episode. So thank you again, Jessica. And thank you again,
You're
listeners. Bye.
Bye.
I hope you are so excited about where you're going, because I know I'm excited for you. Thank you so much for listening in today. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you shared it with a girlfriend or posted it on social media. Tag me so I could personally say thank you. I am so grateful. And until next time,